Entertain Impact when Jive Records was sold in 2003. I went with the arrangement for 2 years to Bertelsmann, Sony BMG, actually. That was the company that bought it, lovely people. I went back to Columbia to Teachers College. I was very interested in education with kids. And I felt, you know, I'd seen the power of music. I'd been at Live Aid. We put records out that had, like for the Rosa Parks 40th anniversary of the bus protests, that had earned lots of money for her and Mr. Parks's foundation. And I thought, you know what? I've kind of done the music thing. I still love music. I'm still very involved in music with a social mission-driven company down in Memphis and Atlanta called Made in Memphis Entertainment, and with participant media that you talked about before. But I thought, you know, certain time, certain age, I'm sure a lot of us go through this. It's really time to give back, and that's really what I felt to do. And I'd seen the power of pop culture to change behavior and even policy on occasions. We saw Bono and the HIV and debt forgiveness. So I put my first project out in 2005. It was an album and TV show called Between the Covers on VH1, hosted by the wonderful Bacon brothers, Kevin and Michael. And we raised money for HIV and cancer research. And I thought I was going to be originally a product company, you know, putting out these kind of albums, but then the world changed. But I think the reason I also did it is because I'm in both worlds. I'm making entertainment, hopefully with messaging inside, but entertaining nevertheless. And I was starting to be in the philanthropy and social justice world much more. And I felt that I could connect those two worlds. They don't often speak the same language. And by doing that, we could basically have a combination that was very effective in getting things onto people's radar screens and having them be inspired to act. Let me think. An example might be the Rotary Polio campaign, where we had 80 different ambassadors, from Itzhak Perlman and Bill Gates to Ziggy Marley and Angelique Kidjo, all doing, we're this close to ending polio. But we also had, for example, talking about getting those difficult to reach desired audiences, Bollywood actors, to get a young mum in India and her husband, who had to give approval as well, permission to go and get vaccinated, or Iman in northern Nigeria to issue a fatwa saying it was okay to get your kids vaccinated. So it just shows the variety of what is an influence in a situation. Turning to impact, that to me is the holy grail, because the reason we exist as a socially entrepreneurial agency at Entertain Impact is to do the most good for the maximum amount of people. And while we pay the rent and we have to do all those things, and it's really important because you have to have a sustainable business, we're there for a different purpose. So I spent a lot of time on this. We have somebody inside the company who heads up measurement, and we have a senior advisor, Katie Payne, also, who helps Holly McDonald, our internal person. I divide it in a couple of ways, and I know that you're never going to get precisely everything, and you have to worry about bandwidth, capability, all this kind of stuff, and the information you get. But I kind of think about it as tactical. So, for example, the campaign I mentioned with Alima called "We Are the Solution," we got influencers, though doctors. We did a whole campaign with animation that was supplied by Dakar, where the organization is based. And we saw a 600% increase in their social media followers, and we got 10 times the amount of people go to their donation page. That to me is fantastic and provides some of the fuel that these organizations need, but it's not ultimate impact. Ultimate impact is, was the amount of people who got treated for Ebola greater after than before in comparative periods, or situations. And so that's where it gets tricky, because if we go back to the polio example, we certainly can say we helped raise money, we got awareness out there, but when India went polio free, which was really the work of Rotary and the governments and UNICEF and the Gates Foundation, I don't try and measure that. I just think we're a grain of sand on the beach, and we had some impact somewhere, and that was great. So you have to not overstate your impact. I think it's really important not to do that because you lose credibility. I could give another example, which is with the Elmer Philanthropies and the Elmer Music Foundation, which is a foundation that deals primarily in Africa, but has a lot in the US in the music and youth development space, where we have youth centers around the country. The young people come in through music, but they also get wraparound services: immigration, education, health. Go to college, go to wherever you're going to be best suited and you want to do. We can't say that we improve academics or school attendance because there's parents, there's the schools, but what we can measure is social emotional learning. And over the 10+ years we've been involved in that, these different organizations and that program, we've seen significant gains in confidence and peer cooperation and things like that. So I think measurement is really, really important. And I would just say, make it part of your DNA. I think that's really important to do. And then the other way, because we're all in business, and even if I deal with businesses or I deal with nonprofits, you might have the marketing person or the executive director. You have the chief financial officer, who is also interested, because we all, especially now with inflation that's going on and all that kind of stuff. What's your ROI? We measure our ROI, and we can measure that by ad equivalency, the cost of reaching audience versus alternative methods, and generally we have a very satisfactory ROI. So that's one type of thing. And then because we're all in the social impact space, we have a second one called the SROI, social return on investment, and we try and measure that. So I'll give you an example of that. Year Up, which is a wonderful organization. I don't know if people know it, but it takes young people who have kind of gone to high school but haven't necessarily launched their career or their college situation. This might be people who are homeless or their parents need them to go out to work, whatever it is. They put them through their program into internships and jobs. And so Year Up was part of a study in 2021 with pathways for advancing careers. And it was shown for every dollar you invested, you saved $2.64 of public money. They weren't getting, help from the government, but more than that, Year Up graduates earn 28% more than their peers. And the net benefit to society in the first few years, not over generations, because it is generationally changing, was around $38,000 per graduate. So if you can talk about these things, you can show success internally, you can get other things funded. And what's interesting now, although I'm just reading this research, I don't really want to quote it, is how with Instagram, there's a lot of research going on about Instagram and how the way that you use Instagram influencers and creators is really having a positive effect on purchasing decisions and brand perception for companies. So that's a big thing, I think, to be looking at if you're in business.